Hi, my name is G.F. Watkins. Most of you I know, and if you're new to the Most Dangerous Game or to the blog, welcome. I'm sitting in my home office right now and just enjoying a Saturday and was thinking about you. And I wanted to come in person today and just kind of tell you where I am in my heart. I feel like it's time for us to go chase some giants. I feel like it's time for an adventure. And I wanted to come to you, my friends and fellow teammates in the gospel, see if you want to come along. Everything we do is a choice, so um, please don't ever feel pressured. Really, the pressure should come from within. If the Lord quickens your spirit with this, which I hope He does, if I'm someone that you count as a leader, I hope this will be from the Lord for you, and I hope we can do something significant together. Now, if you're a part of our church, then you're going to be hearing about the Killing the Giant campaign. Now, this campaign, let me start off by saying this is not so that your pastor needs money. I don't need money. God has blessed me, and when I give, I receive. And I've told you this many times before. I don't live off of other people's giving. I live off of mine. So I'm a proponent of the message of faith in God. All things are possible because I've seen it in my life. However, I realize that many people aren't in that position and not in that level, and they've never really taken that next step to go where no man has gone before. So I think it's time to chase some giants. First off, the church is doing great. The church is debt free. And that's an incredible place to be. Thanks to you and thanks to people like you that give, and God blesses them, and they give more, and the church is debt free. And to only be 15 years old and the building only 12, I'm excited about that. The church, everything you see in that church is debt free. The ranch has a value of $10 million. It is not debt free, but we have paid down half. So that means we only have half to go, actually less than half to go on paying off the ranch. And I just feel like this is a great opportunity for us to take the next 2 months and ask the Lord what He'd have us to do. I'd ask you to ask Him to stretch you into a place where you've never been before. And just for the next 2 months, mid-April through mid-June, and we'll culminate with our anniversary, June 17th, I want to ask you to do the very best that you can. I want to ask you to dig deep and look for innovative ideas and things that would stretch you. Just like I'm going to ask my family to do the same. My sons are going to do the same because we're going to take a shot at this giant called debt. And I want to make sure you understand, just like David and Goliath, this debt stands out and taunts the people of God every day. No, it's not a killer debt. God has delivered us, and we are moving forward. But I don't know if you know this or not, but every day we pay X amount of dollars in interest, and that money, I think, could be better used. And I think you think the same thing. And as a team, and as a family, and as a leader of your family, I would like to suggest that we bring our efforts together and begin, like David did against Goliath, to pick up that stone, run towards that giant, and begin to sling that stone. And that stone would be a financial seed sown strictly into destroying the debt that is remaining in our lives, to free us up to go into the mission field more, to free us up into the mission field of Katy and the surrounding area more, to help us to create a better environment at Jordan Ranch for more intense events and encounter events and women's events and youth events and ropes courses and lakes and other facilities out there. This weekend we have the Wounded Warriors. They're packing the house. Actually, it's the whole week, and so that's husbands and wives, and one or the other or both have been to war recently and come home with a wound, a missing eye, a leg, an arm, or just an emotional wound. If you can only imagine getting up and having to go to war every day where your life is on the line, and then you have to take lives. There's a huge need today, and we're filling that need. You and I are at the ranch, Jordan Ranch. So what I want to propose to you today as a family is that we get out from under any kind of oppressive debt whatsoever, and as a team, we take an opportunity to take a shot at this Goliath. couple of thoughts I want to give to you, and I'm going to be giving you tips on this every day for the next 2 months, and I hope it's not something that you consider a bother, but I'm going to take my time to communicate my heart through either a video or a written page, and I want you to focus with me and think about what it is you would like to do, you and your family would like to do to take this giant's knees out from under him, or take his head off, or whatever. And I believe if everybody does what God tells them to do, that God will honor that, and somehow, some way, God's going to drop a big old rock right on the head of that giant. So if you would, get something to write with. I want to give you just a couple of points that we're going to start with today, and then tomorrow I'll pick up on some more. Take just a minute and grab something, and we'll take a few notes right now. I want to introduce you to a book. It's called Living Beyond the Possible. And this book is by Wayne Myers, Trusting God with Your Finances and Your Future. Wayne is an incredible man. I'm hoping to get him to come and speak to us. He's in his 80s. He's lived on the mission field all of his life and has some really good thoughts on living by faith. And so I want to start off and read you something. And by the way, if you become a President's Club member, paid in full, I'd like to send you this book free and just bless you with it. You also get to come to Intense 2013 free. By the way, it's going to be called Armed and Dangerous, and we're going to be honoring our veterans and honoring our heroes of war, our military men and women. So that'll be 2013, and we're going to do that in March. I believe it's 14th through the 16th this next year. Let me read a little bit from Wayne's book. You're going to like this. He says, F.G. Myers said that we'll never know the extent of God's resources until we dare to do the impossible. Everyone who has lived up to their full potential as movers and shakers in God's kingdom has had to step out into the unknown. Isn't that true? Those who live beyond the possible live a lifestyle distinct from the norm. You will never hear them subscribing to the philosophy of live and let live. On the contrary, God's people are a breed apart. They're made from a different mold than the world. Boy, I don't know about you, but I always hoped and thought that my life would be different than the average guy. From the time I was a little boy to the time I was a coach, I just never want to think of my life being average. But it's up to me to make that change and to make that difference. And it's up to you to do the same. When I read this, I'm thinking that's me. Not because I'm prideful, but because I want to make something out of my life. And I think you're the same way. He said, imagine David, just a boy, taking on a giant. Isn't that interesting? We're talking about that. Or Abraham moving out to a new country without knowing where it was, living by faith. I like to rub shoulders with people who think big, Wayne says. Stand tall, live holy, defy the devil, and take the prey from his grip. They dare to build a road through uncharted territory to the glory of God, or for the glory of God. They travel from victory to victory, from one challenge to another. Their lives are an inspiration to some and a rebuke to others. When we live this kind of life, we honor, we honor the Lord, who said in Jeremiah 32:27, Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is anything too hard for me? It is impossible to grow without giving, Wayne says. If you want to fulfill your potential, then give yourself away. Unless you are giving more to God's kingdom today than you did last week, you will eventually stagnate. This is an incredible book, and he has a lot of people on here that you'll recognize. Reinhard Bonnke, that gives it credibility. Billy Joe Daugherty, Dutch Sheets, Peter Youngren. It's a real man of God, and I look forward to going through that book with you and some of his thoughts with you as we go through this for the next 2 months or 8 weeks. And I think you're going to learn a lot. I'd like to hear from you. Some of you send me comments and some of you do not, but I want you to be able to use Most Dangerous Games as well as our blog, which is just simply my name, gfwatkins.com, and put a comment on there. What I'm asking you to do is to pray and pledge a certain amount in this 2 months, and then ask the Lord how you can meet that pledge. whether it is with however you want to do it, you name it. It could be a million things. You could work and make it extra time. You could make sandwiches. You could make beans. You could sell whatever. You could go out and mow yards. My boys are mowing yards right now. If you're a preacher, you could go preach more and dedicate a certain portion of that. But whatever it is, it's a sacrifice. You know how to give, and God will tell you how to give. But be creative, and for God's sake, don't say, I don't have any ability to do that. You have ability because you have Christ that lives in you. I want to start off. 1 Samuel 17 is a story about David and Goliath, and there are 11 points, which, no, I'm not going to get into those all today, but I will as we move through these 8 weeks. And as I read 1 Samuel 17, it is an interesting concept to see the Goliath. In verse 1, he says that the Philistines gathered their armies together to battle and were gathered at Succoth, which belongs to Judah. Now, Judah is one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Verse 3 says the Philistines stood on a mountain on one side and Israel stood on a mountain on the other, with a valley between them. Isn't that the way it is between you and your enemy, the devil? Whenever God says something, the devil says you can't, and he tries to oppress you. Well, the enemy of most people is debt. Can you imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and you were debt-free? Your mortgage was paid for, your vehicles were paid for, your children's college was paid for, your savings were all topped off. Can you imagine what kind of a feeling you would have besides a euphoria? How about a contentment and a thankfulness? Well, when God gives you a promise, he gives you a promise. And I want you to notice that where the Philistines stood, where Goliath stood, and it says the champion came out, and his name was Goliath, and he was 13 foot tall, and tells how much his armor weighed. And he stood and he cried out to the armies of Israel and said, why have you come to line up for battle? In other words, what do you really think you can beat me? He said, choose a man, we'll fight. Whoever wins, the other people that of the losing champion become the slaves of the winner. And that's what debt does to us. It enslaves us. It depresses us. It puts down the vision in your heart. And it does the same thing for God's house. There are many things that we would like to run forward and do, you and I both. But we have to remember that the enemy tries to stop us from doing these things. The enemy being debt, Goliath. But God had a champion. His name was David, a hero. Dr. Cole tells us that a hero is someone who acts in a moment of time on a need greater than himself. That's what I believe is the adventure of chasing giants. That's what is fun about life. Giving away your life to Christ so he can use it for extraordinary means. Making champions out of all of us. If you never get stretched, you'll never know what you're made of. This is an opportunity for you to be stretched. And just like David took that stone and ran at that giant and slung that stone. If you look at a sling, you realize it has 2 pieces of rope. And the middle is a piece of cloth, and then that cloth is a stone. But when he let it go, he released only one side of that rope, and that rock flung. And the history tells us that the only place on Goliath that wasn't covered with armor was right between his eyes, and that's where the rock landed. Well, do you think that David was really that good? Or do you think that when he released that stone, that seed, God's hand picked it up and put it right between the eyes of Goliath? I believe that. And I believe that he'll do the same thing with your seed and my seed. We plan to sacrifice large as a family. We always have. We always have from the beginning of when we started Powerhouse. We never built Powerhouse for us. We were saved. We built Powerhouse for you and for your family. And many of you have been saved in this house. And many of your family have been saved in this house. And I want to challenge you today to wind up, put a seed in there and throw it. And realize God is going to take it. And he's going to take the stone of all of the members at Powerhouse and those of you watching on video or on websites that are far away. We have over 1,000 people in the Most Dangerous Game program. I think it's over 20-something countries that are represented. And I want you to be a part of this thing. I want you to help me kill this giant. And I want to believe God for a miracle for you, not as some TV preacher. I'm not talking like that. This is not on TV, and I'm not begging. I'm giving you an opportunity to be in league and in partnership with a venture that's bigger than yourself. Remember, a hero is someone who acts in a moment of time on a need greater than himself. And I can only imagine what we will be able to do when that ranch is debt free, when that ranch is actually making a profit instead of paying a bank. Now, if you would like to be a part of this thing, then make a pledge. And you can go online and do that at Dangerous Games or on the blog, or you can go to powerhousechurch.tv, and we will make a special account for Killing the Giant for you. And Joyce will let you know exactly where you are on that. And then we have these large stones that we're going to put in the garden of, or in the flower bed rather, at Jordan Ranch, and it's going to have your name on it. So I believe that they'll start at about $500 and go up in increments up to whatever we decide to do, depending on what people pledge. If you want to sponsor a building, you can do that. If you want to give $1 million, you can do that. We have a lake that we need for over $100,000. I don't know who I'm speaking to today. You may have the ability to write that tax-deductible check, and we'll just see what happens. Again, I'm not trying to manipulate you. You need to pray and ask God what He'd have you do, and then I'll work with you on that. But as our friends and as a few people in the ministry, we just want to say thank you. And I'm excited about killing this giant. And David didn't ask anybody to go with him. He ran after the giant himself, because he said, my God, who delivered me from the lion and delivered me from the bear, will deliver me from this Philistine giant as well. And I believe that. So I'm going giant hunting, and I'm inviting you to come along on the adventure. I hope you will, and I hope we can celebrate in June about killing this giant. Till I see you again tomorrow, or hear from you again the next day, may the Lord richly bless you.